Record soybean prices and wheat following this week after a very surprising USDA report. Right here, we are going to discuss with Herry Gidel on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, in this week we had record soybean prices. Let's talk about that first.
Well, yes, it ever since we had our sell-off last week, it's been creeping back along the way. The our weekly crop conditions were a little less on plantings than beans than expected. That was one of the features. From there, the um, the weekly export sales or export shipments were a little shaky, but then yesterday's sales were very good in both old and new crop. And that really pushed this thing up where we had been talking about even last week that the USDA's export sales report this week could probably see an increase. I was looking for 40, maybe 50 million, 60 million because of the fact that we're still 3 months away. The USDA nodded my direction, but in that, but didn't go as far as I was hoping for, and some other people. And to some extent, today's markets also, well, through the middle part of the week here, there was lots of talk about a very strong cash market and basis and things like that, and it kind of quieted down on that today because of the report, and we had some profit taking. The markets tried to rally a little bit after the USDA reports, but then kind of fell back to where it was the beginning of the day.
And what struck you the most in this report?
Well, definitely the one thing that looking at the thing is the fact that USDA's economists kind of felt like that. I think the one thing that's bothering them about it, looking at the sales being increased any more than their 30 million again this time, was the fact that our shipments are pretty substantial yet to ship out of here between now and the 1st of September. The interesting thing about it is that we've had similar amounts, very hefty amounts that were shipped out here 3 out of the last 4 years. So I don't. It's definitely going to be more in last year's pace because we had a huge amount of push on export sales last year through the first 8 or 9 months. From there, the from that standpoint, the internationally, I think the other thing that kind of grabbed a hold of us here, maybe some of the reasons why they were cautious about expanding our export sales any more than 30 million, was the fact that they also increased Brazil's number back 1 million. They were at 125. CONAB earlier this week had also kind of nodded the head of bringing back the 1 million metric tons they took out the month before. And then Argentina also increased their number by up to 41 from 41 to 42, and the USDA increased their number up to 43 and a half on the number. So yeah, they're pointing to reasons why the U.S. exports might not come around. I guess the one thing I keep looking at is that I don't know that we're going to have no export sales for the next 3 months, and I also am not sure we're going to have a lot of them rolled over into September here, depending on how the season goes at this point.
Now, I think I want to jump into the Argentine wheat production that is expected to be the lowest in 10 years. So, you think wheat will follow with record prices as well?
Well, it's this time of year we always end up. The world's really concentrating on the U.S. first, on its production and things like that. The reason why that number came out is the fact that, as you pointed out here, they're looking at an 18.5 million metric ton crop. This year's crop, I think, as I remember, is very close to 21 and a half, 22 million metric tons along the way. And so that's a significant reduction. It's all boiled down to the fact that you look at the last, 2 months or longer, hardly any rain across all of Argentina. Pretty tough to get any wheat started. They're reducing down their planted area and things like that. And the interesting twist on it is, I know that Brazil and Argentina have both tried to promote the idea of having drought-resistant GMO wheat. Looks like they definitely need to have it this year, the way things are going. So that's part of the story, but that's really as much to do with our new crop plantings ourselves in the U.S. At the same time, the U.S. wheat crop was also updated today, and the winter wheat crop actually went up 8 million. I think I was looking for 8 or 10 million decline. Not significantly different than even the trade was looking for at this point. The real surprise that came about in the wheat market in the U.S. was that the big rise was actually in the Pacific Northwest white wheat. That's really a noodle wheat for the Asian trade, and that was up 12 million. The hard red wheat, which is the version or the variety that's planted in the Great Plains, was down 8 million, and I think it was up 4 million or so in soft red. So that's how we had the 8 million increase. It came from, and I think that's part of the reason why wheat today ended up closing stronger in both Kansas City and Chicago, was the fact that today's increase in winter wheat wasn't in either of those markets. And I think people were kind of anticipating that the actual numbers they were anticipating, or at least from the wheat standpoint, were vulnerable yet. And here's an interesting fact: when you go down through the individual states in winter wheat, Texas went down, Kansas was unchanged, Oklahoma went up 2 bushels, Colorado went down, Montana went down. So there you go. Only one state out of the top 5 or 6 states, 7 states, had higher yields in winter wheat. So, and at this point, that we're still some vulnerability here on what kind of harvested acres we might have. That won't come out though until the June 30th USDA acreage report.
Yes, and what about the corn market? Why it didn't have the same reaction? It seems.
Well, the corn market, it's been it's not as close to its all-time high as beans actually pushed up towards it. I think a day on Thursday when it was at 1785. We were up there in the 780s and that, but the corn market, interestingly enough, I was not anticipating a lot of changes. I think a lot of people were looking for no particular change in carryover stocks on corn this time of year. I've kind of mentioned last week, I think, along the way, that this time of year is not the time to really anticipate a corn crop to look under stress or things like that, because it doesn't need a lot of moisture. And that we do have some heat coming for next week, which is going to make it interesting how this market reacts. They're talking about our highest temperatures of the summer here, or excuse me, of the year so far, through, I think, Tuesday through Friday, or Tuesday through Thursday. But the corn market's reaction today was really based upon the export sales. Like in beans, we had them increasing on things, and we still have 30 million more sales that are above the USDA. On the other side of the coin, on the corn, we are slipped a little bit behind the pace that's traditionally this time of year. And so they went ahead and made the adjustment and took 50 million out of that. Now, they also, interestingly, found 5 million more in food usage, and both this year and next year. So it wasn't a total 50 million increase in carryover stock here on the USDA's numbers today. Interestingly enough, the other feature that probably prompted the USDA to go ahead and slice some of our exports was the fact that as we both have heard here this last 2 or 3 weeks, is that the industrious Ukrainians got a lot more planted and got things rolling here during the month of May than I think they or us around the world were anticipating. So they got higher plantings out there, and also the weather has been somewhat cooperative. So they went ahead, USDA, and increased their corn production number from 19.5 million metric tons, 19.5 million metric tons, up to 25. So that's a 5.5 million metric tons higher supplies available. Now, the key question is, it's a long ways between now and September and October. Hopefully they'll get a chance to get more exports out. They have been pretty good about getting some stuff out by rail and other sources, I guess trucking it across the border, things like that, which this week, one of their ag ministers said they were nearing 2 million metric tons. Well, that's not what they exported in the past, but over a 12-month period, that's still 24 million metric tons, and that's higher than the general thought was. So that was part of the reason why corn was a little bit, you'd say, didn't really respond to the stronger wheat prices, or the soybeans stayed on the defensive just because we didn't take that carryover stock down below 200 million.
Yes, and what about the weekend? We closed it Friday with mixed results.
Well, the weekend, interestingly enough, I think the focus in here is going to be how this weather forecast sets up here for the central U.S. That's to some extent, as I mentioned before, it's going to be some people, and this rightly so, people talking about getting all the moisture we've had in different spots here that has delayed some of our plantings. At the same time, above normal temps will help spur some growth at this point too. So the 95-degree temperatures in Chicago isn't what we normally get, to say the least. But the idea that it could end up spurring some higher, improve the growth patterns. Because right now, lots of commentary, the corn looks pretty good because all the seeds have germinated, but it's also short. On the soybean side, not as good a commentary because of some of the rains that impacted that particular crop that came, because it's traditionally soybeans in most cases are planted after corn. It has changed a lot over the last 10 years, but at this point, that's still a major factor from that standpoint. So the feature is that the corn market and in general, the markets are going to be really seeing how long this particular stretch of hot weather stays with us. And the interesting twist on it is that a lot of the agricultural weather forecasters have been really attuned, of course, to the La Nina, and also the thing called the PDO, which is basically the sea surface temperatures across the California, from up in Seattle all the way down to Baja, and that could be a still feature of this thing. And we've had a really strong jet stream across the Pacific that's kind of broken down. So that's the reason why we're finally getting a little bit of a ridge building here next week. The interesting thing about it is, does that could become a reoccurring factor for us this summer? And that really would change the attitude of things. So I think there's still a market here that wants to see a couple things, how this weather finally settles out for the North America or the balance of June and July. And at the same time, we want to see what these acreages come about. Everybody's anticipating slightly down on corn, up in beans, and maybe some reduced spring wheat plantings going in to prevent plants. So, and of course, we always have our stocks reports. That's always another big feature in the June 30th updates.
All right, we'll watch north and south. We'll see you, Jay.
Exactly, lots of things. Price wise, I was kind of wondering if we might give a push towards this $18 or above. I still think that that might be an opportunity to move some old crop supplies here if it makes a sharp bounce on heat next week. Because one thing is we are going to have more planted acres on beans and the weather in August is the big feature on beans. July and late June and July is for corn.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day, sir. Good to talk.